Hey everybody, this is the first Professor Data Viz lecture. This is the only Data Viz exercise, I believe, that is in PowerPoint. So I went ahead and just made a PowerPoint to explain what we're going to do. The PowerPoint is also posted in case you want to reference the individual text boxes that I'm going to talk about. So if you have your orange book in front of you, you will know that I am walking us through page 16. So the first part of page 16 essentially says what stories can be told with a single number. So here we're talking about data visualization techniques for showing just a single number. So a single number could be something like a percentage, or it could be a raw number. And of course, a single number could represent a wide range of topics. The examples from your book that are given on page 16 of single numbers that someone might want to report include things like our employees scored an 88 average on their ethics assessments. We served 123,000 clients last year. Only 27% of children in this key neighborhood had a dental visit in the past year. So these are, statistics related to something that's informative based on whatever point it is you're trying to make. 9 out of 10 consumers prefer our pizza over our competitors. Okay, so what that means is that we want to find a way to visualize this data in an interesting, eye-catching manner. And so on page 17, we're going to use the single large number technique. And the single large number technique essentially says, okay, what you should do is you should show the number really big. You should put it in an interesting font. You should be careful that you don't have it cluttered. Like there shouldn't be too many numbers that are large, because then of course manipulating size does not have an effect. And a really interesting aspect that you can find on page 17 in the very bottom paragraph is that the author actually cites a study about the single large number strategy, where she reports this study by Zickman and Fisher, Zickman-Fisher, sorry, in 2014, where they compared disease prevalence using either an icon array, a pie chart, a bar chart, or a single large number. And they found that this single large number was actually the best method for accurate interpretation of the significance and the scope of the disease. So she's citing that to essentially say, there are reasons why the single large number technique can be really useful. So the first thing that we're going to do today that you'll need to hand in is that you're going to make a figure that looks a lot like the figure on page 18. So on page 18, figure 2.1, you can see that it says 1 out of 50 million will die of a snake bite. And what she does, this figure is on page 18, but what she does is on page 17 in the middle of the page, she tells you exactly how to create that figure. So I'm going to walk through creating that figure with you. This is, I should say rare. This is the rare activity that's actually done in PowerPoint. I mentioned that earlier. The step-by-step instructions are on page 17. I mentioned that as well. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to make 6 separate text boxes. So I've done that here. So I made a text box for 1, a text box for out, another one for of, another for 50, another for million, and another for will die of a snake bite. So you're welcome to pause this video now and make those 6 text boxes on a slide in PowerPoint and write in them exactly what you see on this page. The next thing that you want to do is you want to take the large numbers, and by large numbers, what she's referring to is if you look at the figure, the number 1 and the number 50 are both in large text. You should also make the word million in large text. So we're going to make those all size 199, and then they should be in a different font. She mentions the font that she used, and I actually couldn't find it on my PowerPoint, so I just picked a different font. So you can do whatever you want to, but just know what I did on this page was I made the 1, the 50, and the million very large, 199. And I found a font that looked kind of like what I saw in the book. So, you know, it's pretty simple, it's bold, it's not hard to read. You don't ever want it to be hard to read. The point of data visualization is to get a picture of the data quickly and simply. So you wouldn't want to make some weird font that's hard to read, but you do want it to be eye-catchy and bold. Okay, so you can pause here while you do that. The next step is that the words out and of should be gray, as well as that whole line about the snake bite. So those should all be gray, unlike the large numbers in the million, which are black. And then you're going to size the out and the of size 72. So you can go ahead and pause me now and make it look like this. So out and of, you're changing to size 72 and you're making them gray. And then will die of a snake bite, you're making gray. The next step is that you're going to take will die, which you already made in gray, or that whole line, will die of a snake bite, I should say, and you're going to make that size 56. So finally, what I did is that once I had everything, the size and the colors and the fonts that I wanted them to be, then I kind of rearranged them to try to roughly mimic what you see on page 18. Mine doesn't look exactly like the figure. I wanted to kind of space it out based on my font that I made it. It doesn't, you know, have the edges exactly in the same place. I could have played around with the size, but I think that this is good enough. So if you want to make your figure something like this, and it looks roughly like the figure that you see in the book for this very first exercise, that's perfectly fine. If you wanted to play with the size a little bit and play around with fonts to get it to look closely packed in, so it's sort of exactly like a square, as you can see in figure 2.1, you can go ahead and do that. The reason why I'm going to call this good enough for our lecture today is because you're going to have another activity where I do want you to do a little bit of brainstorming and a little bit of researching on the internet. And so that's why I'm going to say, this is okay for today. This will be one of the slides that you submit. And now I'm going to have you do another slide. So if you're still working, pause me here. Now it's your turn. So now what I want you to do is to think of a true story that could be told using a single number. So by story, I mean just exactly like the examples I gave earlier, right? The idea that on average, our mathematics student achievement is 64%. But I want this story to be something that's interesting to you and is true. So I want you to find some data online that appears to be from a reputable source. You don't need to cite it. I just don't want this to come out of nowhere. And I'm really interested in what you find. So I want to be able to believe you, whatever you're reporting. And then I want you to use the single large number technique to visualize the single number. So you could do this in a variety of ways. You could use different colors. You could use different fonts. You could try to make it in a different shape. You don't have to make it exactly as the last slide. I prefer that you didn't, because I would prefer for you to play around a little bit and see, for example, if I use different colors, do I think that's actually a good thing or a bad thing? So remember, what data visualization is trying to do is it's trying to convey data as simply as possible. And this is so important in modern communications, because we're trying to make really quick decisions off of very limited information. And we want to get that information communicated accurately. So if you're trying to brainstorm exactly what you're going to look up, here's what I want to tell you that I thought of when I was thinking about this example. When I was a senior in college and I decided that I was going to go to the University of Iowa for grad school, I started looking up facts about Iowa just so that I would have something fun to tell people about where I was moving. And one of the facts that I found was that there are more pigs than people in the state of Iowa. So of course I need a number there. So I would have to look and say how many more pigs, or approximately what's the proportion of the ratio of pigs to people. But if I were in your shoes when I was an undergrad, I think that's the type of fact that I would have looked up, because I was excited to be moving to Iowa and to be starting a PhD program. So once you've done that, what you're going to submit for this activity is a PowerPoint file with the following 3 slides. The first slide is just your name and the name of this assignment, that this is a prof-led Data Viz number 1. It doesn't have to look fancy. You can play around and make it fancy if you want to. The second slide should look like the figure that we made together. So it should look pretty close to figure 2.1 in your book on page 18. Again, like I said, it doesn't need to be perfect. And I know you might not be able to find the same font, and I don't want you to spend a ton of time shaping it exactly like it is in that figure. Because what I really actually want you to spend more time on is this third slide, because I really want you to play around and kind of express yourself. And I'm looking forward to seeing exactly what kind of data you would like to visualize. What story is it that you would like to tell using the single large number technique? So that's what you're going to submit for today. I am really excited to grade them. And by grade them, I really mean I'm just excited to look at them and see what you came up with.